Well, let's get into it. But that's an interesting. I mean, it's how all this plays out is going to be really interesting for the Chiefs. They need to save money wherever they can. So the most valuable thing that could happen is that Joshua Simmons becomes their left tackle forever, and they don't ever have to worry about that position again for the rest of Mahomes' career. And then they're able to go for value at right tackle. And Jawan Taylor right now is not a value for them. So we'll see how things go moving forward. But let's get into these superlatives, man. And I just want to say thank you to producer Hunter, producer Sean. We go live so we can interact with you guys. That's why we do it. Otherwise, we just pre-tape everything and it would always be perfect. So we appreciate your understanding, and thank you to the audience for helping us get the word out. And now, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button so that we've got a full show here. All right, let's get into these superlatives, Adam. Most likely to have a breakout offensive season. I'm going to have you go first on this one. I really like your answer, by the way.
I'm going to take Elijah Mitchell because everything's on tape. He's an explosive runner. He's got good vision. He's tough. He's fearless. I mean, he wouldn't have been a successful San Francisco 49ers running back if he wasn't fearless, if he wasn't willing to hit the hole with reckless abandon. That's just how they're wired. And he wasn't able to stay healthy in San Francisco. But every time he got on the field, he was dynamic. He put up numbers. He looked great. The Chiefs training staff has a history of taking a broken 49ers running back with juice, with promise, and fixing him long enough to make a difference in Kansas City. I'm talking about Jerick McKinnon. And this is the kind of explosive rusher that the Chiefs missed last year. Now, I know Rashad Smith is in the mix as a receiver, but I think Elijah Mitchell, if you look at where Kareem Hunt is in his career, and maybe I'll talk more about where I think Isiah Pacheco is, but I just think the door is wide open for Elijah Mitchell, and nobody's talking about him. So is he injury prone? Maybe. But as we've seen with players in the past, like Keenan Allen, you can be injury prone for 3 or 4 years and then have a long stretch of healthy football. They're kind of random, and I think we're a little too quick to assign the injury prone designation to players.
Yeah, I mean, it's the NFL and it's the running back position, especially. Look, how long were we hearing about Saquon? Saquon's injury prone, right? And then he goes and he has that season. It's just a hazardous position and job, period, playing in the NFL. So, yes, some guys really just can't seem to get on the field, and it might just be, is it injury prone? Is it just a series of unfortunate incidents and bad luck? Is it a combination of both? It's possible. We've seen guys, J.K. Dobbins had the worst injury luck ever, and then he managed to. I think he got hurt at the end of the year last year, finally, but he played a number of games in a row without getting hurt. And the way that I think that the Chiefs are going to use Elijah Mitchell this year, it's going to be a committee. And so he's not going to take as much punishment. One, the Chiefs don't run the ball like crazy like the 49ers do. And two, he's going to be in a committee with Pop. You mentioned Smith, who I'm really excited about. They may not use him very much this year, just maybe some gadget plays and things like that. Remember, he's got the 7th round draft capital. So, I'm excited about Mitchell. The talent is there. The explosiveness is there. And so if he's healthy and he's a good fit for the scheme, I think you're right. He could be one of those players that kind of nobody's really thinking about. They're just expecting a heavy dose of pop. And then you got Mitchell when they're on 3rd downs doing the Jerick McKinnon thing. For me, I went with Josh Simmons. Some people might say this is too obvious, but I don't think it is. He's coming off the injury. There is good news coming out of OTAs, which is that they think he's going to be ready to go, full go for camp. But I think there's a lot of people out there who still think that, hey, he might not play right away because they signed Jalen Moore and they gave him a bunch of money and he's going to have a red shirt year. He's coming back off that serious injury. And that's totally a possibility, especially if the Chiefs like what they see in Moore. But you got to remember, they signed Moore before they knew they were going to have a chance to draft Simmons at the end of the 1st round. So now that they have him, well, he's cheap. Moore is a little pricey. Who cares? Who starts? Start the best guy. And so I think if Simmons looks good, I mean, this is a team that started that started Kingsley Suamataia last year, and we know how that worked out. So they're not afraid to start a rookie, and Simmons has a much higher ceiling than Kingsley. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts day one if he looks good enough, and then they've got Jalen Moore there as a swing tackle, and maybe they can dangle him over Juwan Taylor's head and be like, "Stop jumping off sides. If you jump off sides, three games in a row or something, we're benching you." So I just think that the stage is set for this guy who played at a very high level at Ohio State, who played in big time, high leverage games at Ohio State, could come in. He improved every year and start right away. And then maybe even if he doesn't start right away, perhaps he comes in at some point during the year when they feel like he's ready. And if he locks down that, I mean, if he even just plays league average, I think everyone's going to be thrilled after what the Chiefs dealt with last year.
That's really all they need. They need the left tackle position to creep back to average, to kind of creep back to where uh, Orlando Brown Jr. had it, to where Donovan Smith at least had it in the playoffs. Maybe Donovan Smith was a work in progress during the regular season, but by the playoffs, come playoff time, he was very good. I would compare this situation to what happened with Hollywood Brown last year. The Chiefs looking at MVS, he's not really working out. He's had some moments, but he's not really working out. Mecole Hardman, his tenure is kind of nearing an end. We need a field stretcher. We need somebody who can stretch the field, not only vertically, but horizontally. So they signed Hollywood Brown to a team-friendly deal. And I would say that Jalen Moore, for a left tackle, for a guy that has the potential to start at left tackle and be average, that is a pretty friendly contract when you look at some of the other contracts that were doled out to left tackles this offseason. And then they went in the draft and they drafted Xavier Worthy because they're like, Hollywood Brown is a short-term fix, but Xavier Worthy is a permanent fix at this position, ideally. And they see this situation as the exact same way. And the Chiefs, how Brett Veach and Andy Reid have operated on offense is if they have a glaring problem, they tend to overcorrect. So just like I think they tried to overcorrect field stretcher last year and team speed, they tried to overcorrect left tackle because, last year they had multiple options that didn't work out. So they need to be prepared. If Jalen Moore is bad, they can go to Josh Simmons. If Josh Simmons just can't get healthy, they can go to Jalen Moore. So they kind of have, I think they really learned their lesson not to kind of roll the dice just on one thing they haven't seen before. It worked with Donovan Smith on a budget deal, but they went back to the well one too many times and they kind of got burned. I mean, I would say there are plenty of reasons why they lost the Super Bowl. And, we discussed those ad nauseum, but left tackle was exhibit A.
Yeah. And they knew going into the season, like they've seen Jalen Moore play left tackle in the NFL. Now you could say last year they had seen Wanya Morris, but they knew Wanya Morris wasn't good enough. That's why they drafted Kingsley Suamataia. If they thought Wanya Morris was the guy, they could do it, they wouldn't have drafted Kingsley Suamataia. This is a little bit different. They've got real good NFL tape of Moore playing, and they like what they see. So it's a better evaluation than even they have on Josh Simmons. Now, that doesn't mean that they think his ceiling's as high, but they felt comfortable enough to be like, we don't know what's going to be there for us in the draft. It's not a great tackle class. We have to do something. We have to have a guy because what we have in house is not the answer. So two good breakout candidates there. Let's dive into some more. We got some from the chat here. The Campbell Cooks says breakout season, Kingsley at guard. And he says Jaden Hicks for safety. Very interesting. We'll see when we get to our defensive guys. But first, we're going to do most likely to lead the team in sacks. I'm going to kick us off on this one. I didn't go the obvious route here, or maybe it is the obvious route. I went with George Karlaftis, Furious George, who has been the sack leader for the last 2 years for the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe that's correct. I'm almost sure of it. He has not put up monster numbers, but neither has Chris Jones sack-wise. So you have to ask yourself why that is. there can be a little bit of variance when it comes to sacks. We know that Chris Jones is getting double teamed pretty much on every play. And so he's still getting pressure. He's still wreaking havoc and causing problems, but sometimes he's just not able to get all the way home. And that benefits a secondary pass rusher like George Karlaftis, who's not seeing those double teams, who has a relentless motor, and especially when the coverage holds up in the back end, it gives him time to get home. So he's been a big benefit of playing with Chris Jones. And I believe, is this George's contract year? Yeah. So
Yeah.
George coming into a contract year. Chris Jones, it took him a couple of years to really get fired up. So
let me correct that.
Yeah.
5th year option would be next year.
Okay. So it's not.
He's a first round pick.
Yes,
like
that's right. That's right. So, I still think George is growing as a pass rusher. He's got plenty of years under his belt now, and he's younger. Chris Jones is getting a year older. That doesn't mean he's not going to be effective, but if Chris Jones leads the team in sacks, like, do you think Chris Jones is going to go out there and put up like a 17 sack season again? Probably not. It's possible. He's amazing. But I feel like if Jones leads the team in sacks, we might be in a little bit of trouble, because that means that the other guys aren't getting it done. And I just think George, that we've been seeing a trend, and what I want to see is George take the step forward and become the double-digit sack guy. Maybe flirt around with 13, 14 sacks, and if he does that, I think we're in business.
I certainly see where you're coming from. I think what we'll call the Frank Clark role, the best edge alongside Chris Jones. I don't want to be reductive here and say it's just cleanup sacks, but there certainly are some cleanup opportunities, and you're just not seeing doubles. And the other thing is, Chris Jones can just take the toughest matchup. If they need to kick him out on Deion Dawkins and just occupy Deion Dawkins so the other 3 guys can go nuts, he's willing to do that. So I think that is really helpful to Spags, the other pass rushers, the entire defense, that I think he's been very unselfish with chasing those sack numbers. I know when a bonus was contingent on getting those sack numbers, sure, he wanted to go out there and get that. Chris Jones, at the time of the Christmas game against the Steelers last year, when he was inactive, was leading the NFL in pressures. And I want to say that again, leading the NFL in pressures. No caveat, no except edges, because Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons were ahead of him. No, he was ahead of those guys. He was ahead of everybody. And I think he's just been a little unlucky with those. I think pressures are more stable and sacks are more fluky. I have always felt that way. I think a lot of people feel that way. I think eventually things are going to correct themselves. I have seen zero signs of Chris Jones taking a step back. He looks as good as he ever has. And I think there are, as the NFL goes on and recovery science gets better, and all the physical therapy and sports medicine, all this stuff evolves, you see these guys like Chris Jones play longer. Fletcher Cox played a long time. Calais Campbell, he's your age, man. He's still playing. It's crazy. So I think Chris Jones is still in his peak. I think he could very well lead the team in sacks. But as far as George Karlaftis is concerned, he was 14th in pressures among edges last year. That means he is in the top half of edge rusher ones, the best edge rushers on the team. So he's turned into a very good player. I hope he has another rung up on that ladder, and I guess we'll see this season. But he did really I think once Charles Omenihu came back last season, and both George Karlaftis and Mike Dana had to play a more reasonable amount of snaps, everybody looked better. So I think that's the hope, that if Charles Omenihu, a year removed from that ACL, looks better and can eat up some snaps. They also drafted 2 guys along the defensive line that George can be a little bit more fresh down the stretch in games.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one thing we didn't really mention is the change in the Chiefs offense directly impacts the change in the Chiefs defense. The Chiefs defense they're seeing different offensive approaches now because it's not 2018, 2019 where the Chiefs are going out there and their teams are behind. They score 40 points to beat the Chiefs, so they're not throwing as much. Like they're trying to keep Mahomes off the field. They're trying to keep the games close and run the football and things like that. So there are fewer the Chiefs played in so many close games last year. There just aren't as many opportunities for the Chiefs to be in positions where guys like Jones can pin their ears back because they're in a shell coverage and they're just gonna go at them because they know they're throwing the ball. So something to keep in mind. Over in the chat, we had somebody said FAU. Um, uh, I I hope so, but I don't think we're going to see much of FAU this year, to be honest with you.
If FAU leads the team in sacks, the Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? If that's
There's horrible injuries.
yeah,
It's,
yeah. Oh, knock on wood.
Yeah. All right, let's go to most likely to have a breakout defensive season. You kick us off this time, Adam.
I'm going cornerback Christian Fulton, who they picked up from the Chargers, former second-round pick out of LSU by the Tennessee Titans. Look, if Dave Merritt, Steve Spagnuolo, and Brett Veach and that entire brain trust, who with their scouting, they've really emphasized identifying guys that hold up well in isolated coverage. They're as good as anybody in the league at finding kind of unheralded gems and then taking their game up to another level in the secondary. So if those guys have identified Christian Fulton as a priority this offseason, man, I think he's going to come in and be a really good player because the track record with that defense and guys like him is there. So now health permitting, because he's a guy that's had some trouble staying on the field, but that is who I'd probably put a bet on if I had to say a breakout defender who really wasn't part of things last year.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research on him. It's great when you get somebody from the Chargers because you can actually make about 10 or 12 phone calls and you could talk to all of their fans and just get the whole fan base. So I talked to all the Chargers fans. I was going to say some, but then I realized anyway. And the main thing with Fulton was just consistency. He would have really good stretches and then make like a boneheaded play. So once he gets a little bit of that Spags magic dust sprinkled on him, I think the potential's there, and that really excites me. So I'm with you. I like that one. I'm going to go with, and we had this one earlier from one of the listeners, Jaden Hicks for me. So Bradley Locker over at Pro Football Focus, there's actually an article on arrowheadaddict.com right now that you guys should definitely check out about this topic. Basically it says that the Chiefs are sitting on a gold mine, I believe is the headline when it comes to Jaden Hicks. Here's what Bradley Locker said. Across 469 snaps in 2024, Hicks recorded an impressive 75.1 overall PFF grade with a 75.7 PFF coverage grade and a minuscule 2.7% missed tackle rate, the third lowest among qualified safeties. Hicks' advanced PFF metrics are wildly impressive, such as 91st percentile run stop rate and 74th percentile forced incompletion rate. Yeah, that gets me excited with Justin Reed going out the door. There are more snaps are opening up, more opportunities are opening up. And, man, this sounds like a guy definitely on the rise.
You had him listed before I got a crack at this.
I knew I needed to get it in there quick.
Yeah, I think I would have gone the same way. And I think what speaks volumes is since Andy Reid started his tenure in Kansas City, they've always had a high paid or highly drafted safety kind of spearheading the secondary. They had Eric Berry, they had Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, and then Justin Reid. And this even predates Steve Spagnuolo and Brett Veach in their current roles. So this seems to be kind of a Reid initiative. And there were some good safeties on the market this offseason. So if they forego the opportunity to bring one of those guys in, that is a vote of confidence in Jaden Hicks. Justin Reed was extremely well liked as a leader. Again, I think it speaks volumes. And Justin Reed was incredible at coming up and stopping the run, at blitzing. I think sometimes left a little bit to be desired with his closing speed in coverage. So potentially what I see in Jaden Hicks is somebody who can stop the run, go up there and thump and blitz equally well, but potentially grow into an even better coverage player than Justin Reed. Now, the leadership void, he's younger. That's going to be a little harder, but Trent McDuffie at this point is probably going to be the leader of the secondary, right? That's at least what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and it's exciting. Spags always has that guy that he can be a little bit of a thumper that he can bring down into the box, that plays the run really well. So if he's able to mix in um, some of the coverage, you know, I can't the word I'm looking for, but the coverage errors that we would see for Justin Reed at times, which could be catastrophic, right? And we saw that even with Dirty Dan at the end of his career when he just didn't have it anymore and he would get blown by. That's a huge part of the Steve Spagnuolo defense. So he could be a big time star for the Chiefs if you compile these numbers here. All right, let's keep. Oh, go ahead.
Can I say one last thing about Hicks?
Yeah, please.
If Steve Spagnuolo has a fault, it's sometimes too much veteran deference, because we saw with Dan Sorensen that he would rather have a guy whose head knows where to be and feet can't take him there than a guy whose feet can take him there and whose head doesn't know where to be. I think I'd rather be the opposite, rather have the athletic potential and hope that they could get it together, because once the feet are gone, they're not coming back. So if he's willing to go this all in on a second-year player, great sign.
Crystal Lee says, I know it was a tough year for this young man, but I'm going to say Najee Johnson. Look, I'd say he's got an uphill battle because of some of the struggles last year, but the Chiefs showed some trust in him. They like him. I think he was a pretty good tackler last year. So he's just got to get some of the coverage stuff worked out. But there's guys they hang on to, and we know how good they are at developing DBs. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was somebody who could take a step forward. We'll keep it moving. Next up is most likely to fall short of expectations. I'm going to go Xavier Worthy here. It's not that I think he's going to fail. It's more that I think that the expectations for him, based on what we started to see at the end of last year, his explosiveness, the near misses with Mahomes, might be a little bit outsized for what he'll actually be able to deliver in the NFL on a regular basis. We are seeing smaller wide receivers start to have a little bit more of an impact, but they're still at a big injury risk. Traditionally, the guys that really make it for a long time are the bigger bodied wide receivers, the taller guys. And guys like Rice, if they get overused, they get hurt. And I think a lot of Chiefs fans see that explosiveness and they think, oh my God, he's going to be, a potential wide receiver one. And make no mistake, Rashee Rice is the wide receiver one on this team. So I think with him coming back, he's going to eat up a lot of volume. And what you're going to see from Xavier Worthy is they'll still use him in the gadget sense that they did last year. And then, I'm thinking of guys like, who are like your tradition, like maybe, Deshaun Jackson would be a best case scenario, but you're going to see like a few home run balls here and there. So you might have a week where Xavier Worthy catches like 2 passes for, 112 yards. And then the next week he just has, a couple screen passes and he has like 25 yards.
Raheem Shaheed, right?
Yeah, that's a great example.
Or Ted Ginn or something like that. Someone
or Packers MVS would have like, he's a different size, obviously, but he was a deep threat burner guy.
Or even Saints MVS. I don't know what happened when he went down to New Orleans, but that was wild because he couldn't even get on the field in Buffalo, but he went to New Orleans and all of a sudden he's catching touchdown bombs.
That Cajun cooking, man.
Hey, the Chiefs like it down there. That's all I'm going to say. The Chiefs, ex-Chiefs love going down to New Orleans. I'm with you. I think that a lot of people might not realize that Xavier Worthy started to have success when he kind of stepped into a little bit more of that Rashee Rice role, where it looks a little bit different, but they're moving around a lot. They're getting him in the slot, and they're kind of manufacturing short touches for him to get the ball in space and let him do his thing. Those touches just aren't going to be available with Rashee Rice back. Rashee Rice will probably be one of the target leaders of the NFL. He was on pace to be that through 3 games. I mean, he was just a target hog a month into the season when he got hurt. So I'm with you. I think his impact might be bigger than his statistical profile, if that makes sense. I think teams are going to have to account for him and fear him in a way they didn't in VS or even McCole Hardman. I think souped up McCole Hardman, even at McCole Hardman's best, might be a good comp for him. There were some moments. I mean, McCole has had some long touchdowns and some deep moments. And we've also heard Dave Toub talk about him as a potential returner and saying that he's the best returner on the team. And maybe with Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice back, they can use him in that role.
Yeah, I think a lot depends on how Hollywood Brown performs as well. All right, Adam, what about you?
It's unfortunate, but I've got Isiah Pacheco. These running backs who tend to run into contact and play an extremely physical style, they just don't last that long. And I'm rooting for him. He's always been a good story. I think sometimes we forget that he's a 7th-round pick and that when you are the Kansas City Chiefs running back, you are always facing light boxes. It is one of the easiest places to play running back in the NFL. Now, pass protection, that's a whole different story. That's going to be one of the most difficult places to play in the NFL. But I don't know how much he's really being asked to do that. I think he's made some strides in that department. I'm rooting for him, but he looked like a shell of himself last season. And I think the kind of unspoken cardinal weakness of the Chiefs last season, even in the Super Bowl, was a running game that was not feared. You had Vic Fangio saying, I'm going to rush 4, I'm going to drop 7, and I'm not going to lose a wink of sleep thinking about that running attack, because basically for the Chiefs, a 20-yard run is like going to Mars. It's like nearly impossible. So I think they're going to be looking for someone who can rip off those 20, 30, 40-yard runs. And Elijah Mitchell, health permitting, I think he's that guy. I actually think Elijah Mitchell has a chance to be the Kansas City Chiefs RB1. I know that might sound crazy right now, but he's up against, long in the tooth, Kareem Hunt, Carson Steele, Isiah Pacheco, a 7th-round rookie. They haven't invested in any of these other running backs. There's no reason for them to just kind of prioritize any of those other guys over Mitchell. And it's crazy to me that nobody in like fantasy football or NFL media is talking about this kind of matchup. I think people are assuming Pacheco is going to come back and be himself, but I need to see it.
Yeah, and Andy's not afraid. Last year he didn't quite bench Pacheco, but like Kareem Hunt was clearly like at a certain point when Pacheco couldn't pick up the third shorts and stuff, and he was like, Kareem Hunt's, he's got more strength, he's got better vision. He wasn't exactly tearing it up either, but he got what they needed. He didn't get much more than what they needed, but he got what they needed, and that was huge.
Yeah. ESPN, I think it was Barnwell maybe, had a list of the best specialists in the league, right? And he had Kareem Hunt as the best short yardage specialist in the league. He has amazing vision. Some of the best vision I've ever seen. He's not this player, so don't freak out when I make this comp, but in terms of his eyes, he is Priest Holmes. Nothing else, but he's got the Priest Holmesian eyes.
Yeah, and it's just a shame that he's got the miles that he does, because I'd love to see prime Kareem Hunt back in this offense. Okay, best dressed. This one's straight up. Best dressed. Why don't you kick us off this time?
How can you not go with Travis Kelce? The guy, that's like his essence, right? What's Travis wearing to each game? And he's stylish enough to keep up with the biggest pop star on the planet. So yeah, Travis has his swagger, his style, charisma, all that is out of this world. And I think the willingness to like try almost anything as kind of a fashion guy and not face plant that much, because like Joe Burrow is a cool guy. He's a stylish guy, but sometimes Joe Burrow face plants, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't see as many ill-advised fits from one Travis Kelce. So I'm going with number 87.
He dresses well. I could never pull off the stuff that he wears because his style is definitely more like there's a little bit of like streetwear in the stuff that I see him wearing, and it's a little bit more, maybe not quite as avant-garde as Joe Burrow will wear sometimes, but it's up there, and he pulls it off, and he's got enough swag to pull off that kind of look. I'm going with Harrison Butker. Harrison Butker is much more my speed. Like I could wear the kinds of, it's a very like classic, preppy style of dress. But I mean, when they get off the planes and stuff, that dude always looks like $1,000,000. His hair is always perfect. He's got a tailor. I do not have a tailor. It's just way too challenging for him. And but yeah, Harrison Butker always looks great. So I think if you're a classic gentleman's wear kind of guy, Harrison Butker is going to have polished shoes, a well-fitting suit, a little bit of flair. He'll wear some colors in there, but he always looks like $1,000,000. Had to do best dress. Like I just, it's part of sports culture these days.
And there are a lot of well-dressed guys. Charles Omenihu is a well-dressed guy. I love Trey Smith in a cowboy hat. So
yeah,
the list goes on and on. Chris Jones usually looks pretty suave himself.
Yep.
So
yeah. Okay. Next up, back to football. And I promise this one's going to be about football, but it is cutest couple. You always said cutest couple or best couple in the high school superlatives. We're going to do cutest couple. But what that really means is best duo on the field. So, in years past, Mahomes to Kelce, Mahomes to Tyreek Hill, maybe a couple of linebackers or Chris Jones and George Karlaftis. And I'll kick us off with this one. I'm going to go cutest couple, Patrick Mahomes and Rashee Rice. I think we were starting to see at the end of a couple of years ago and then at the beginning of last year, these two are going to start making beautiful music together out there on the football field, with Travis Kelce slowing down a little bit. There being another go-to option that Patrick could go to. I think we're going to get to see that come to fruition this year. Hopefully we've got a slightly distracted, but head screwed on a little straighter Rashee Rice, coming back here, ready to help the team and a little wiser and hopefully a lot more impactful. What about you, Adam?
Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. These two
good one.
were born to be together. They are like a buddy cop tandem, and like a Shane Black movie or something, Lethal Weapon. They are like Bebop and Rocksteady from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They came in to the league together. You see them in like that Step Brothers-esque Jack Stack advertisement. They just seem to be best buds, and it really is a wholesome relationship and duo. They play next to each other, so you just gotta love those guys. And I'm like thinking back to Jared Page and Bernard Pollard and Tank and Turk. I mean, there's been it's not always like the best two guys on the field. Sometimes you just have these duos. Even Priest Holmes and Larry Johnson were kind of a duo for a minute there. So it's fun to have two guys that play alongside each other. Of course, you got Willie Roaf and Will Shields in that same line. So
maybe my favorite of all time, and it was ruined by one of them, was Derek Thomas and Neil Smith. God, why we? Damn it, Neil!
What is it? What are those brothers? Pacheco brothers? I'm probably butchering it, but they had those old 80s and 90s posters, and there's that one that's Rush Hour of Neil Neil and Derek, just so iconic. And
Yeah.
Neil, we forgive you, Neil, kind of.
They did the Nigerian Nightmare on Elm Street mashup poster, which I got to get my hands on one of those. I got to get onto eBay.
That was like made for you
Yeah,
specifically, right?
yeah, it sure was, man. It sure was. All right, let's keep it moving here. Oh, by the way, in the chat, I saw Joshua Clayton said Patrick Mahomes and Bashard Smith. That would be cool. I would be excited about that. Um, Joshua also added, "Why the donkeys, Neil?" I'm still not over it. I'll never get over it, probably. Okay, and last one here. Most likely to be a surprise cut. Kick us off, Adam.
This is hard. I went Carson Steele just because they've gone without a fullback in the past. I know he's not just a fullback, but they do have 4 other significant running backs. And if you're looking at Isiah Pacheco, you think they're going to keep Kareem Hunt. They've struggled so much in short yardage. And some of the times a fullback, we saw this with Burton, a fullback kind of takes some of those short yardage responsibilities. That's not probably going to happen if Kareem Hunt is still here. And then the aforementioned Smith and Mitchell, I just think he might be the odd man out. He had some ball security issues last year, and Andy Reid sticks with those guys through those ball security issues when they're fumbling and kind of doing the bonehead stuff, as instill confidence in them so he can get a real look at them. But I think that commitment in the season shouldn't be confused with long-term commitment, because they got a real good look at what Carson Steele could become last year. And I think if they really believed in his ability to be a full-time player who saw regular playing time, they wouldn't have signed Kareem Hunt. They wouldn't have gone out and signed a guy and drafted a guy when they had limited picks and limited cap room. So I think it's probably going to be one of these running backs not making the team. They have 5 guys, 4 spots. Remember, Noah Gray can do a little bit of the H-back stuff too. So I think that leans toward Carson Steele getting cut.
Yeah, I think that's a good selection. I don't know how surprising it would be. I think some people would be surprised because of the playing time that he got last year and like the full hero status and stuff. But you're right. Like, if he was going to make it, that last year was his opportunity. Like, that was it. He got the start. You got Pacheco down, and I know with the fumbles, a lot of people attribute it. Well, he fumbled his chance. It wasn't just the fumbles, man. Like, they were looking at the tape, what he could do, his speed. He doesn't have any speed, and I know slower guys can succeed in the NFL, but maybe not that slow. So I'm with you on the running back position, but I went with Kareem Hunt. I know he was great for the Chiefs last year. He's there back on a deal, but he wasn't like a priority re-signing for them. And as good as he was in the short yardage, if Mitchell's healthy and they've got Smith now, you could easily see a situation where they're like, there's always somebody, right, that kind of comes out of nowhere, practice squad receiver or somebody like that they decide that they want to keep on the roster really bad, that they want to protect. And then when that happens, even if they don't think they're ready, right? But they're like, we can't put this guy on the practice squad because somebody's going to take him. Sometimes they have to make hard decisions. And they may look at a guy like Kareem Hunt and be like, his best days are behind him. He might not even get signed right away. Like that. It's not, again, he was on the street last year. And even though he played well for the Chiefs, there's no guarantee people are going to run out there and scoop him up if they don't sign him. So they might tell him, hey, be ready. But we just ran out of spots, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's cut. And I do believe that if he were cut, a lot of Chiefs fans would be really surprised by that because of the value he brought the team last year.
The Chiefs are so good at operating within the regular season, and they're so forward thinking that sometimes they treat the regular season like a laboratory. So Kareem Hunt, that's not a very forward-thinking player. He was a great solution in a pinch last year, and he played admirably, coming in off the couch and getting that many carries. He's tough as shit, man. You got to tip your cap to him. But I think they're going to want to use the regular season to look at does Isiah Pacheco still have it? he is a free agent after this season. And then again, Mitchell and Smith, they haven't seen those guys. So they're going to want to see if those two can add some extra pop to the offense. I definitely think either Kareem Hunt or Carson Steele will be gone. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion that one of those guys is not making the team, barring injury to Mitchell or Pacheco or something health wise with those two guys.
Yeah, special teams could come into play as well. Or is Kareem Hunt a guy they're going to want to use on special teams versus
Steele
maybe a
might
Carson
be.
Steele? Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
And Dave Tobe, who actually ESPN, once again, different people, but they did their best quarter century team last week. And Dave Tobe made it as their special teams coach. Now, some of that was his tenure with the Chicago Bears when they had Devin Hester, right? But he's coming to Kansas City. He's been great. I know there have been some moments where why are guys catching punts within the 5 all the time? Let's knock it off. But he has a lot of sway in that building, and he usually gets 1 or 2 guys that are his call on who makes. I feel like the 52nd and 53rd spot are his on this roster.
Yeah, and he's earned it. He certainly earned it. All right, everybody. You listen to the Arrowhead Addict podcast. Pacheco and Adam Best. Hit that like button on YouTube. We appreciate you. The Chiefs portion of the show is over. If you are new to the OG Hour, we like to talk a little bit of film at the end of our shows here when I have Adam on. We're both big film guys. What we do is we pick a year and we rank our 3 favorite movies from that year. Not necessarily the best movies, but our 3 favorite. And this year, to fit with the school theme, with the superlatives, we're doing the year that Adam graduated from high school. So we're going to date him here. It's 1998. Interesting year for film. Not one of my favorite years, but there's some fun movies in this year. There's a couple of really good ones. So let's just dive into it. I'll kick us off this time. And I've got some honorable mentions. I need to, because it didn't make either of our lists. Saving Private Ryan is a tremendous film. It's gut-wrenching. It's not one I want to pop in all the time and watch, frankly. I may never watch it again, but it's a good movie. I just don't like war movies. I'll watch them once. Deer Hunter, who's sitting around on a Saturday night like, hey, let's watch Deer Hunter? It's an unbelievable film, but I feel like I need to be in a class or something to watch some of these movies.
Right.
It's a tremendous film, great performances, and I love all 3 of these movies. And I think if you said, hey, give me 3 movies to show somebody what 90s movies were like, particularly the teen genre, I would pull these 3 out. Can't Hardly Wait, Disturbing Behavior, and The Faculty. These are just fantastic. The sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer came out as well, but if you want a snapshot, 90s music, high school, a little bit of horror mixed in there. Can't Hardly Wait is Jennifer Love Hewitt. It's a snapshot of time. The actors that are in the movies, the way they dress, the music, those are all 3 fantastic. So I wanted to give those honorable mentions because I wanted to put them on my list, but I couldn't do it.
God, what's his Seth Green? Is that his name?
Seth Green, yeah.
Yeah, with the goggles.
Yeah, he's got the goggles.
That was my senior year once again. So those kids were supposed to be my age. Very, very goofy kind of fashion year that year, but it kind of stands out. And I like those picks. I like The Faculty too. Is that Hartnett?
Yeah, I think. I always get everybody confused because of The Faculty and then Disturbing Behavior. These movies came out. It was the year of the knockoff movies, like Armageddon and Deep Impact. You know what I mean? The studios would release the same movie, that just with different scripts.
The Faculty has a crazy cast. I mean, you gotta listen to this cast: Hartnett, Elijah Wood, Frodo, Clea Duvall, Jordana Brewster from Fast and Furious, Usher, Salma Hayek, Famke Janssen, Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart play Robert Patrick from Terminator 2, Danny Masterson, and Shooter McGavin himself, Christopher McDonald.
Yeah. Some fun movies. But my number three is Armageddon, which I already mentioned. Michael Bay beginning his sort of reign of terror. Listen, I'm not a big Michael Bay guy. And this movie is it a good movie? I guess it depends on what your definition of good is. But I think I've got it in like the Independence Day camp of like summer blockbuster, wildly entertaining, winning cast, and it's like there's something about Armageddon. It's stupid, but it's very melodramatic and very like Americana and all this stuff. But I mean, this cast: Michael Clark Duncan, the late great Michael Clark Duncan. You got Steve Buscemi, Ben Affleck in there, Billy Bob Thornton. It's an unbelievable cast. Everybody's super winning. They're all it's really funny movie. You've got some really like great classic lines like "Get off the nuclear warhead," and you know what I mean. Like it's completely landing on an asteroid, blowing it up, saving the world. It's got everything. It's ridiculous, but I just think it's incredibly like it's popcorn flick, entertain me as Joshua was saying in the chat. Um, I love Armageddon. The good music, you get Aerosmith, Liv Tyler's in the movie. I mean, what more do you want?
Owen Wilson, fresh off of
Yeah, the
working with
guy that
Wes
plays
and
the
kind of
Russian, the caricature Russian guy, and
oh
then
yeah, from Fargo. God, what is his
yeah,
name?
I
I'm
can't remember
blanking
his
on.
name, but he's
You know what I love?
fantastic.
You know what I love about Armageddon? The premise that it is easier to become an astronaut in a short in a short frame of time than it is to learn how to drill. I mean,
Yeah,
just crazy. Great.
yeah,
That
yeah.
can't be correct, right?
Probably not. No, I think those guys could learn how to operate a drill. Uh, but they didn't do that great of a job drilling, to be honest with you, up there on that asteroid. Anyway, they did get it done though.
They did get it done. They saved the world. And there was
Yeah,
another. I don't know if it came out the same year. Did Deep Impact come out the same year?
yeah,
Crazy. Basically, extremely similar movie.
yeah.
So quickly, my honorable mentions. I'm a sports guy, particularly football and basketball. So he got game. I love Spike Lee. Ray Allen as Jesus Shuttlesworth, kind of a snapshot in time. Run Lola Run, great form film. If you haven't seen it, it's a lot of fun. And then The Truman Show. I mean, I thought we had to mention you. I'm glad you put Saving Private Ryan on there. I think if we didn't put The Truman Show on there, people would probably yell at us.
Yeah,
So I put that. I'm going to go with kind of a neo noir double header here in kind of The Swamp One and Wild Things, which is a ridiculously fun movie if you don't take it too seriously, and then A Simple Plan, which I think is a better movie, a Sam Raimi film with Bill Paxton and Billy Bob Thornton. Really, really good stuff. Kind of, they were looking for the next Fargo, and this is the closest thing they found. Basically, is the way I describe A Simple Plan.
yeah. I've never seen this one. I've got to get it on my list. I just watched a movie that I had not seen. Oh, Gosford Park. I hadn't seen Gosford Park the last time we did this, and then I texted you and I watched it. Um, is I really enjoyed it. It's fantastic. Um, yeah. So let's move on to my number two. By the way, one last thing on Armageddon. I was talking about the great lines at the beginning of Armageddon. The guy, there's a guy who's just like a stargazer dude who discovers the asteroid, and he's talking to NASA or the government or whoever, and he says, he says, uh, "Sir, I'm retired Navy. I know all about classified, but one more thing: the person who finds her gets to name her, right? Meaning the asteroid." And the guy says, "Yes, yes, that's right, that's right." And he looks at his wife and he says, "I want to name her after Dottie, my wife. She's a vicious, life-sucking bitch from which there is no escape." I mean, that's just an all-timer of a line. Yeah, yeah. I guess if you know the world's ending and you hate your wife, that's the time to tell him.
He was probably not thrilled when they successfully like drilled and
Well,
saved the
yeah,
world.
yeah. Now he's got to pay the divorce. All right. Number two for me is Pleasantville. I feel like Pleasantville is one of the most underrated movies literally ever made. I think people liked it. It had a little bit of a goofy premise of a brother and sister going into a TV show, um, but it's actually a tremendous film. Toby Maguire, Reese Witherspoon, you've got Jonah Allen. Um, I'm
Macy, William
Yeah, yeah.
Macy,
Oh, William H. Macy, who has an
Jeff
incredible
Daniels.
Jeff Daniels. Both Macy and Jeff Daniels are unbelievable in this movie. It dives into prejudice and race and all of these things. Um, White Americana, and it's just such a fantastic film. It's funny and beautiful, and it of course it goes from color to black and white, and then the people get enlightened in this. You just got to, if you've never seen it, it's too hard to explain. It's a fantastic film. It has some absolutely beautiful scenes, really good music, and really tremendous performances. And it's a really great script. It's interesting. It's original. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before, and it's a terrific film if you've never seen it.
Gary Ross is on a heater there for a minute. He did that and Seabiscuit, writer director.
Yeah,
Uh,
Another
one of the
Tobey
things,
Maguire, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, he
Yeah,
played a jockey. Uh, one of the things that I really thought was cool about this is having Don Knotts be this kind of mystical TV repairman that
yep.
can like whisk you away back to this, what is it, mid-century. I don't know if it's the 50s or 60s,
Like
but
50s, I think.
and I just thought that was perfect casting. And you also Paul Walker was in it. We should
Yep.
mention Paul
Yeah.
Walker,
Oh yeah.
the late Paul Walker, and then J.T. Walsh, like all time, that guy, one of the best character actors probably in film history. Like nobody knows his name, but you like probably everybody watching this has seen him in 10 different movies at least.
Yep.
Just had a real reign there.
And he has that
Good.
great moment where he turns to color when he loses his cool, and it's about being stuck in the past and not being able to change, being afraid of change. And yes, there are certain very not very subtle like racial undertones and stuff like that, but it's tremendous. I just think it's tremendous and fascinating movie.
Number two for me is Rounders. This is a movie you can watch it 100 times. I don't know what it is, and also Matt Damon has carved out a really great sports trilogy for himself between this, Air, the story of how Air Jordans came to be, and then Ford versus Ferrari is incredible too. So, but Rounders, you've got like peak young Ed Norton, peak young uh, Matt Damon. You have John Turturro showing up. You have, yeah, I know John Malkovich's accent is bad, but it just kind of works. He's John Malkovich playing with the Oreos. And I love how it comes full circle. You kind of start with Teddy KGB, and he goes back there, and even the voiceover, which is kind of hit or miss, it sort of works. And I definitely think for some reason it's more than the sum of its parts. And some movies, would I call this like a 5-star movie? No, but I this is like comfort food cinema at its best. A movie, when you're sick or you're not feeling well or you're just it's been a long week and you don't want to do any heavy lifting. It's the kind of thing you can put on and just disappear into.
Yeah, I feel like it falls into that, like, the poker movie, like the high stakes. Like it always makes me think of The Hustler, with Paul Newman and Jackie Gleason from back in the 60s. That kind of fun movie. So yeah, Rounders is great. Number I'm on number one. This is it. It's The Big Lebowski. We talk about the Coen brothers all the time. This is a movie that I don't think was truly appreciated right when it first came out. And then it sort of picked up that cult status because it's offbeat. I mean, there was nothing kind of like it really at the time. A character like the dude, played by Jeff Bridges, uh, and again, Steve Buscemi shows up in one of these movies. John Goodman in one of the all-time performances. What's great about this movie is the musicality of the writing for me and the performances. There's a couple of different scenes, particularly one in the bowling alley, mostly between Goodman and Bridges, with interjections from Buscemi. That's just
I am the walrus.
yes, yeah, yeah. The Donnie, please. The like, it's super quotable, but like in the acting world, we talk a lot about beat work, and in the directing world, nailing the beats that are there in the script, moving, which are basically like moments, and the beat work in these scenes among these actors is fantastic. And there are certain films. I think Tarantino's work is like this. Coen Brothers writing can be like this. That's almost musical. Uh,
Sorkin.
yeah, yes, exactly. And the way that the actors speak it really keeps it fascinating and interesting. And the dialogue is sharp and witty. This is just a hilarious movie. It's basically, you've got a lot. You're a big fan of noir, and this is the Coen brothers saying like, what if we did a noir detective movie, but with like a total like lazy pothead? Like, what if we had that guy instead of the detective in his office, and the girl comes in, and it's and then they like with oh brother, where art thou? They're like, what if we did the Odyssey, and then we said it. I think the way they ideate is really cool, and the results are just fantastic.
The movie I comp it to that I don't think it gets comped to a lot is actually North by Northwest. They even
Oh, interesting.
have they even have a callback to that when he the pornography guy writes down an address and rips off the note, and he traces over it, and he sees like a figure of a guy holding his dick. It, in North by Northwest, he does the same thing, but that's how he gets the address. But it is like accidental guy gets thrust into this situation he shouldn't be in. So it's like half that, like half Sam Spade or something, but just with the biggest slacker you could imagine. And
Yeah.
it just works, and it's really an acquired taste. I don't think anybody liked it as much the first time as they did like the third or fourth time,
Yeah.
and it just stays with you. Speaking of rewatchable films, it's just one of these ones that you can do over and over again. And also John Turturro, we're like going back to the same
Oh my god.
the same
Yeah.
actors today, but yeah,
Yeah.
the Jesus, right?
The Jesus, him writing the check at the beginning of the movie for the carton of milk. I it's I you could just sit around and talk about the movie. It's so hilarious.
But you're right, John Goodman as Walter is like all time top 10 supporting comedic performance. Just, I
Yeah,
mean, no question.
yeah, unbelievable. John Goodman actually may be one of the most underrated actors in American cinema. He's unbelievably talented. He can do anything, absolutely anything.
Oh, he shows up in movies like Flight and Argo, and every time he shows up, you're like, he just
Yep.
cooks. He just cooks.
Yeah.
He's like a great six man. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't need a lot of time to get it going.
Yeah.
Arachnophobia,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, all right, my number one. This is one of my favorite movies because I grew up reading Elmore Leonard. He's also the author responsible for stuff like that became uh, adaptations like 310 a Yuma, Justified, Get Shorty, Jackie Brown, and this is my favorite out of all of them. It is Out of Sight. This cast is crazy. It's Clooney, Jennifer Lopez, and it really Jennifer Lopez isn't always a good actress, but she has unreal chemistry with Clooney. You got Don Cheadle, Ving Rhames, Dennis Farina, Steve Zahn, Albert Brooks, Luis Goodman, and where I think this film was most blessed is Viola Davis shows up for one scene. They have Viola Davis for one scene. They have Catherine Keener for essentially like 2 minutes of screen time. I mean, just like true romance level of blessed with the people that show up in this movie. And this is when George Clooney, you first started to say, okay, this guy's going to be a movie star. This guy has some Newman in him, some Redford in him. He can do. He's not just a TV guy or like having him play Batman was like maybe the worst casting of all time because he's more of a Cary Grant, right? He's and this is oh god, what's that movie with Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn? I'm blanking on it, but it's that kind of movie. And again, like rewatchability is one of the things I keep going back to every time we do this with my top three. It's something I watch every year. The editing is, I think the editing is spectacular. We don't always think about that when we think about how a movie is put together, but this is one of the best edited films. Pretty sure it was nominated, that I've ever seen. And Steven Soderbergh is just really a master. I don't think we talk about him enough. It's like we talk about these other greats like the Coen brothers, like Tarantino, like Scorsese, and all the other ones, Spike Lee. But Steven Soderbergh is up there, man. He's one of the most prolific filmmakers we've ever had in terms of output. And I just highly recommend this one.
I've never seen this movie. I'm a big Clooney guy. The cast is unbelievable. Like I love Catherine Keener, love Don Cheadle. So this is another one that I'm gonna have to pop in. That
I
I
gotta, yeah, you're gonna have to
forward.
watch it. Okay, that movie I was talking about is 1963's Charade,
Charade.
and Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn have that chemistry that's very rare. And I'm telling you, man, J Lo and Clooney have some. They are sizzling together. There's a scene where are at a restaurant and they're kind of doing this fantasy conversation, and it intercuts with them back in the bedroom. It is one of the best romantic scenes you'll ever see. And this is a crime movie, so it's not like corny. Oh, and you even have Samuel L. Jackson even makes a cameo at one point. So I'm not going to spoil it, but that's how blessed this cast is. I really think it's like top 25 favorite movies of all time for me.
Wow. All right. I definitely got to watch that one then. That's a high bar. And what movie isn't Samuel L. Jackson popping up in? Especially during the 90s. I mean, come on.
No kidding.
This was a fun one, everybody. Thank you so much. Really sorry about the technical issues at the start of the show, but that is part of the deal when you go live. We're going to get out of here. We'll be back next week with maybe not necessarily the regular slate of shows. We got to figure out the whole 4th of July holiday. But we appreciate you guys so much. Make sure you hit the like button on your way out. If you want to become a member of the Arrowhead Addict podcast, we're about to set up the fantasy football leagues. We got to get the draft scheduled, all that stuff. So make sure you, if you want to check out the link in the description and become part of the Arrowhead Addict podcast crew, we'd love to have you. And it's a great way to support the show. Thank you to producer Sean and producer Hunter for helping us out today. Thank you to my guy, the blog father, the reason we're all here, Adam Best. We'll see you guys next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.